and search for auto response. And you can get auto response only for lead and case objects, so remember this as well. So here you can automatically determine which email template we have to send for the new cases. So like it says, like I said, it has got the similar configuration like the case assignment rules. Okay, auto response rule, mark it active, save it, and open it. You get multiple rule entries, and let's give it a sort order. Let's go to the criteria, the record type, sample, if it is HR, and specify the name and email address to include on the auto response message from line. So let's say, since it is from IT related queries, so let's say, sorry, HR, so let's say HR team or HR support, and this is the sender's email address and it has to be an org-wide email address or email address in your Salesforce user profile. So org-wide email address is the default, the global address which you can set up in this org. So again, if you search for org-wide, organization-wide address, so here you can set it up. But let's go with the user's address. So since my user is already set up, what is the email ID on my case? So let's, okay, this is, so like it says here, the address could be either org-wide email address or the email address in the Salesforce user profile. We cannot give a different email address, like if it is not set up at the org level under the setting which I showed, or if it is not email address in one of your Salesforce users. What will be reply to address? You can give either no reply or something at something mycompany.com, a valid. If it has to be no reply, or if you can expect a reply, then you can give a valid email address here. Which template to use? So auto response, I'm going to use the standard one. Where is the auto response? Yeah, case response. Okay, let's use this one. Email address, notification. Okay, and optionally you can select a survey to send. Okay, send a survey to the case contact when the auto response rule is met. You must have survey enabled. So survey is a different feature you can enable, and then link it with the right survey that will be sent to the customers, but yeah, skip it for now. Okay, so this was for HR record type. Let's do one for IT, and we will see the results then. Okay, here give it IP support. Who is my second user? Let's see this. What is my email address, which is this? See, logically it should be an org-wide, because if an email is going from a company, it should represent the company, not a specific user. in such cases, unless you explicitly want it to go from a specific user. But so far it has to be an org-wide email address, which basically represents your company email address, not a user email address. Reply from, let's say, reply to address, if they reply, so I'm just giving the same email address. Response and save it. What happened? The same email address, right? Is an invalid from address. Why it is an invalid from? Okay, let's go with this. Are we adding some special characters or something? Let us try with this email address. Okay, anyways, so we'll check about that, but yeah, so far we have configured. So auto response rule is done. Let's try to create a case and we'll see it. So this is an HR. I'm going to clone it, and we can get an IT one. This is an IT. We'll clone that one as well. Save it. So what was my email address? Okay, so that was my email address. I'm going to and let us do the same for IT as well. Save it. I'm going to pause the recording for a moment. Okay, so this is how we configure the auto response rule. As I said, it is similar to the case assignment rule. Now let's go back to the case escalation rule. So search for escalation in the setup. Yes. Is escalation. So this is an escalation rule under service. And again, there is a standard one. It says you can determine when cases should escalate and what actions to take. After you create a rule, select if from the rule list and add rule entry. So let's create our own custom case escalation rule. Case escalation rule and make it active. At a time there can be only one rule active. Okay, you see now it became active. Open it and let's try to configure the rule entries for this as well. So where the criteria is and now here one thing to notice is that specify the business hours criteria if this escalation rule can use. So remember we had long time configured business rule, and business rule basically, let's go back to, so business hours, so where basically you configure what is your support timing, and based on the support timing, company support timing, you your service agent or your service team, or they operate on the cases raised by the customers. So if there is a holidays, or if the person is not working, right, certainly we don't want to count those times or duration when the service is not being rendered, right, officially. So in that case, you may want to link what is the business hours set for your company. Okay, so based on the business hours, within the business hours time, the time will be calculated, and accordingly it will, the escalation rule will be set up, right? That makes sense. You got the point? So if you go to business rule, just a second. Yeah, this is there. Okay, open it. So business hours, select the days and hours that your support team is available. And these hours, when associated with escalation rule, which is what we are doing, determine the times at which the cases can escalate. Okay. If you enter blank business hours for a day, that means your organization does not operate on that. Edit it. So you select, give it a name, use business hour as default if you want to make it default. Active, and then you select which time zone you are in, and you select the time from when to when you provide service. And if you don't provide any service on any day, simply leave it blank and it won't be counted. Okay. Here you have three options. Set business hours, so whatever business hours you have configured, you can select it from your, as of now it is default, so select default, or whatever you create you can select for that. Use business hours specified on case. So this is at the escalation rule level. You can define which business hours to operate, but for each cases also you can define which case, which, I mean, on the case record level also, here also you can define which business hours this should be using. Okay, so in that case you can select the second option, use business hours specified on the case. In that case you have to specify the business hours on the case. So at the moment you see on the record we don't have the business hours lookup here, filled here. So anyway, so in that case it will use the default one, but if you want this one, then in that case any cases which you create, not any cases, so the cases which satisfies the entry rule criteria, any one of the entries, and if you have selected the second option, then that case should be linked or should have a business hour linked with it. Or simply if you select this one, it will ignore the business hour, so it will consider all times available for service. Make sense? And fourth option is specify how escalation times are set. I mean, how the clock starts ticking, right? So is it like whenever the case, as soon as the case is inserted or created, it should start counting the times, or when the case is created and disable after case is first modified? Okay, what does it mean? And third one is based on last modification time, which makes sense. So whenever the case is modified, it means it is getting worked upon, right? It is in progress. Someone is working on it regularly, right? So maybe we wanted to count the counter or restart the counter every time, from the last update time, right? This is what it means, the third option. Make sense? So the first one is, as soon as the case is created, I wanted to start the clock timer. The last option is based on the last modification time. So on a case record, what was the last update which has happened? So if my last update was yesterday, and it starts counting from that time. And after 2 days, and my escalation rule is set to execute after 7 days. So after 2 days, I make an update on the record, then my timer again resets and starts the counter from the time when I make an update. Okay, so that's what the last option mean. And the second option, when the case is created and disable after the case is first modified. Okay, understand. So the second option is you create a case. Let me use a diagram, right? Okay. So yeah. So here, this is my timer, and the timer starts whenever the case is created. Second option was based on the last update. Okay, so if this is my timeline and my case is created here, the update has happened here, and the second update has happened here. So every time, this is the escalation rule. So if an update is happened, then it starts counting from here. If the update has happened, then it starts counting from here. So that the and if the escalation rule is set off to fire every time after 7 days, so in that case, this is the update one. This is update one and this is update two. So for this one, the counter starts shifting 7 days, whatever days you configure, 7 days after the last update. But for this one, so the second option says that your case has been created. Fine, my case has been created. Okay, this is my time when the case is created. So from here, my escalation rule starts counting. Let's say it is again 7 days. Okay, but on a certain day, which is this, if an update has happened before the 7 days has actually passed, let's say this is the 7 days. Okay, if an update has happened between the configured timeline, then simply disable escalation rule for this case. It means that particular case escalation, that particular case record will not move, will not go into the escalation, will not take part in the escalation rule if it has been modified within the defined number of days on the escalation rule. Make sense? Mm-hmm. 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 No, that was for the third option. But if you go by the seventh option, a case has been created, and if there has been first update, if it has been modified, then simply disable. So it will disable the escalation rule for that case. So there won't be any further shifting. You got the point. So in this case, the business says that if within the defined number of days an update has happened, simply disable the escalation rule for that record. But in the last one, it will keep on shifting. If an update has happened within the specified number of days, then it restarts the counter. But in the second option, the counter is not restarted if there has an action performed within the stipulated time frame. Okay. Okay, so let's go back, and I wanted to count from the last modification time. Now it's similar. Now you create actions. So what is the age? And age here, it defines basically what the number of hours after which a case should escalate. So you can configure what. So here it will always take the number of hours. So you can set up either 0 or 30 minutes. So it says what 7 hours after, and choose one of the following actions. So to which user or queue this case should be escalated to. Okay, so I'm going to select a user, select your manager or someone, and what should be the template, notification template. So I'm going to select the standard email template, case escalation. There should be a escalated case reassignment. Yeah. And if we have to know, if we wanted to notify to any user, specific user in the system, let's say I wanted to notify my senior manager or whoever, so accordingly select that user. Okay, and for them you can have define a different template as well. Now you can also select, do we want to, notify the case owner as well. So when after 7 days the case will be auto reassigned it to this user. Okay, whatever you configure here. And do we wanted to notify the new owner as well, the new user? So in that case, select this checkbox, and additionally you can add 5 email address here. So this email address may be external email addresses, which are, by external email address I mean the email address these email address may not exist in your system. So when you create a user, right, or when you configure an organization-wide email address, those email address actually is a part of system. But here you can additionally specify 5 external email address. Okay, it depends on you. Now save it. Okay. Now go to escalation rule. This is to monitor, because escalation actions are time dependent, right? So they will be placed under a case escalation queue. Makes sense? So if you have to monitor how many records are within the escalation queue, so you can go to environments, monitor, and case escalation, and here you can search by these filters, like what is the escalation rule name equals, and give the rule name and then search. Okay, we'll see that one as well. Open my escalation rule. Okay, so this is our first entry rule. Let's create a new one again, new one for HR. Just a second. So you can have multiple conditions here, right? and you can click on add filter logic like that. As of now, I'm just using a simplest use case. This time I'm going to use when the case is created. Okay, and what are the actions? Then define after what? After 30 minutes. Who is the user? You can select any user. I'm going to select myself for now. Define the template. If you wanted to notify, else you can leave it. 30 minutes. Now go back to your case escalation rule. Okay. HR, hold on. Okay. Okay, both are HR. Let me change it. Edit. Okay, fine. This is HR, this is IT. Go to IT related queries and 30 minutes upload. Okay, fine. So our escalation rule name is this case escalation rule. Copy it. Go back to our monitoring section. What is the escalation rule? Which is this. Click on search. As of now, you see there is no records which has been escalated. What all information you can see, at what time it was escalated at, what was the case which has been escalated, which escalation rule, what is the rule entries that has triggered, what is the escalation actions, does it ignore business hours or not, and added date. Let's see try to create the case. So just one other thing, if I go to, I'm going to open two separate tabs for each entries so that we can verify quickly. So for HR related queries, right, it will escalate at after 7 hours of what? The last modification time. So I'm going to modify an existing one. Okay, working, save it. Yeah, so my escalation rule will fire, and since and what is the record type of it? HR related queries. Did I modify? No, I didn't modify the HR, so it won't fire for this. Yeah, let us try to verify this escalation rule. Search it, and we saw this one for 30 minutes. Let's go back and see what was the condition in here. So when the case is created, fine. This is IT related queries, and this is 30 minutes. Okay, logically, what is missing? I'm not sure. I will check on this, but how the escalation times are set when a case is created, right? Okay, understand. So escalation time is counted from the time when the case is created. Fine. And since the record type was IT related queries, so we are able to see this 30-minute escalation actions for this case 0134. Now for HR, let's try to what was for HR? This is HR, fine, it is 7 hours, and this is HR related queries. See, for HR we are not able to see this, right? We are not able to see any entries here because the case escalation was not existing from the beginning. We just created. So let's try to modify one thing for this. Let's say priority is now high. So there has been update. Now the clock starts ticking for this. And if you go back to our escalation monitoring scheme, try to search it. Now we see another entries, right? Which is 7 hours, 0 minute actions. Okay, makes sense? Okay. Escalate at 2:29 a.m. So what is my time zone? What I'm trying to do is when this case will be escalated at. So this is the time when it will be escalated. Since today is 23rd and we had set up after 30 minutes and 7 hours. So based on which time zone, let's go to the company information. Because certainly it's not following the Indian time zone. Okay. So I'm going to company information and here we can see it is following the Pacific Daylight Time. Okay. So based on this it has calculated the timing when it will escalate, and hence this was all for escalation. Any questions? It makes sense, right? All of you understand? Yeah. So what we did, we went through the case assignment rule, we went through the case team, where is it? Yeah, case assignment rule. We also saw the case auto response rule, automatically how to respond with a given email template, case escalation rules, and we also saw the case team. So this part we have covered today. Do your home assignments, you will understand more, learn more, and any questions come back to me or you can raise in this Slack channel as well. Next we will go through I'm keeping these two aside because you don't expect much question out of it, just a few of them, but the first two are high weighted area, although the last two also comes under this, but these two are the most frequent ones. So we'll go through the Salesforce knowledge and Experience Cloud basic settings. Also, in addition to that, we'll go through the activity management, which is just 3%, and we'll go through the desktop and mobile administration 3% and app exchange 2%. So over and all, activity management, mobile administration and exchange, they may be covered under one session, 3 to 6 and to 8% of the things. So the questions will be asked just from the higher level. You don't have to dig into, even not higher level than what we have done for others, but it just what are the options, what are the settings which you can do in these areas. After we have gone and in the next and in the second session or the other session for Salesforce knowledge and Experience Cloud, so one session for these two and one more session for activity, desktop and app exchange. And after that our I think most of them we have covered, right? If anything is missing, we'll try to, as I said, we can recap them when we try to go through the quiz sections. That makes sense? Anything which I'm missing?